Marlon, mate, all right?
Yeah, mate, you.
Yeah, not bad, are you?
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
And you, yeah, you've had a good one.
Yeah, I had a bit of a bunkered down day yesterday. 'Cause it's like it gets a bit mad. The lead up to Christmas is like staff night out and meeting up with all muckers, and then there's Christmas Day, which is chaos. And then yesterday was like, no, I'm not doing anything. But yeah, how about you? Good.
Yeah, like can kind of like escape the madness not living in Hull because, like you say, it's just social event after another, isn't it?
The run up. I mean, yesterday I got about 6 text messages off my mates. Come on. I was like, no. And then I tried again today, and I'm like, I'm with the boy. The boy's he's zoned out on his PlayStation. He got on Star Wars games and all that lot. So, and that's when I thought he's not going to give me a minute at 1 o'clock to do it today. So I thought, let's get some of the day out of the way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, my lad's up in at his grandparents. So yeah, it's been a couple of days just like chilling out for me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been all right.
Good.
Good. Yeah, was it your 40th recently as well?
Yeah.
Like a nice quiet one.
Hey mate, we had a very good party. It was we diving Hull, don't you? Our mates were,
yeah.
And then we hired that out. Got one of the lads who works there, Buddy, to do a punk rock karaoke in his fancy dress. So that was quite good. Our Grant came as a singer from Amel and the Sniffers, which was quite interesting. And there's some generic punk stuff. It was real good laugh. I mean, it was meant to be like everybody sings a song each, and everybody who got up was somehow on stage with them. Good, a really good way to.
Yeah, I was enjoying Uncle Dave's outfit. Was he Keith Flint or something?
He was Keith Flint, and you know what? He'd hired the costume, and it wasn't going to come on time, so he made that from scratch. He was adamant he was doing it, and it looked ace. It looked ace.
Yeah, I saw a video where he'd really committed to it as well. The character.
Yeah, and my best buddy Stratton, he turned up as Shane McGowan. And, it was like he had some ink on his teeth and stuff, and it looked good. It was really good, really fun.
Quality, yeah. Yeah, I don't really. We'll kick off with a couple of questions, I reckon. So I put it out there. You're coming on. So Brian Droll on Twitter says, ask him what the roughest pub is that you've played in Hull.
The roughest pub? I bet it was one of the Punch Bowl, maybe Punch Bowl, or when we first started out, we did all these gigs in Hull. Randomly, like up East Stull, where there was no bands playing like original music, it was all cover bands and stuff. So some of them were a bit dodge. I remember once we played a gig and there's just out our set list and they wouldn't let us play. That wasn't rough, but I just don't think, I think they thought we was too rough for them. I can't remember there was Barham, that was a bit of a shithole.
Yeah, sounds it.
It's like we're playing them and then we'd play Delphi, and you'd be like, oh, why are we playing these places? Why are we playing Delphi? We didn't know what we was doing. There's quite a lot of rough pubs in all there.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I had someone saying recently they were like, I don't know, giving advice to like new bands, and they're saying like how it's changed. Like you say, you'd play, all different kind of venues, whereas now they were saying it's better to be more selective. I don't know. Really.
Yeah, probably right. Probably right with the way it works now, with like proper press kits and putting stuff behind you about what venues you've played and not overplaying a venue. I get that. Depends what you want to do as a band, don't you? If you're taking it seriously, following a press kit sort of formula or whatever with a manager, you'll probably listen to people who know what they're on about. But if you're 18, like, I don't know, there's a band in Hull called Cow, Ketamine Cow, and they're all not even 20, and they play all the time. They've only just started to listen to people saying, calm down a little bit. They play about 4 times a week like we used to, because they're just, they want to do what they want to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it depends on it, but yeah, I think there's probably something in that, isn't there? Not doing it.
Is that Moo's band?
No, that's Hannibal's Moo's band.
Yeah, I saw some videos of them the other night. Yeah.
No, they played. Hannibal played the last ever gig.
No, it looked good. Yeah,
it was unbelievable, and there was 5 Unstoppable Force from Hull, Cannibal from Hull, and who was on first? Big River, which is like a bluesy band from Dive, the All Drinking Dive. Cow are like they're all 18, 19, right. And they're all, and Ketamine Cow, and there's a few other bands that are around it, a real quite punk DIY thing going on in Hull. And what's really good as well, going back to, I don't know, when people saying don't oversaturate your own market. Every time they play Adelphi, there's 150 kids there. Every time. I mean, don't get me wrong, none of them were drinking. Do you know what I mean? None of them putting money behind the bar, but they've created a scene. So
yeah, that's it.
yeah.
And I always thought, like, you know, with things like the sesh and stuff, like the standard of local bands always seems to be getting better. Do you think it is a lot better than, say, when you were starting out, kind of thing?
Much more variety.
Yeah.
So yeah, better. I think some of the scenes back when we started in Hull, I don't know if it was like that in other cities, but in Hull certainly there was like there's our sort of guitar-y post Britpop thing going on. But then there was like the punk thing with Freaks and Adelphi stuff going on, but there was quite in their own silos. Whereas now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of lads playing guitars and that sort of band thing going on, but there's certainly a lot more women involved in music in Hull. There's certainly a lot more genres on the same bill, whether it's hip hop, rock, or whatever, or folk, acoustic, some good stuff. A lot more. I think it's because there's a lot more outlets of music and a lot more ways of doing it, whether it's through venues, either doing hardly any gigs and doing stuff online, doing like videos, live performances, using the internet as a means to get out there. It's a lot more varied, and I think it's therefore better.
Yeah. Fair. I'll save the other questions towards the end. I think that makes more sense. But I guess, you know, we plan to have a third Paddingtons one, didn't we? I don't think that's ever going to happen. So I'll get some questions out about that, like second album.
Yeah.
Like, I remember you were quite honest. You said that you were like, you know, drinking quite a lot at that stage. Like, what are your memories of it though?
Second album?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit fractured, that, because we'd been dropped and then we was from the Universal Mercury or whatever, and then we was managed by McGee still, and we got rid of our manager, and he was managing people like the Charlatans. So I remember we went to record. All the demos were there. The demos were done while the years before. There was loads, and then we ended up doing a recording in the Charlatan studio. Did about 6 songs. What was meant to be for the album, and most of them songs did end up on the second album. But we scrapped it. It didn't sound right. It sounded a bit synthetic. But then, so that got shelved. But then you found out later that cost 16 grand just to do 5 songs.
Okay.
Oh, wow, hey, that's a lot of money. I thought I was having mates rates.
Who was paying for that then?
Well, there was money put in there, chucked in through private sponsorship and stuff we had in the kitty, getting paid out. We got paid off basically from the label as well. So there's money kicking about, and then that's when we set up our own label and had a different. Ironically, we had Universal distributing for us, even though they're the ones who signed us and they dropped us. So it just shows how the industry works. It's interconnected in different departments and silos. But yeah, that got binned. And then I think we finally got in the studio because Dirty Pretty Things had just done their first album, and half of that album was produced by that. Is it that Sardi guy? I can never remember his name, and he was a real good producer. But I don't think they could afford him for the full. I think he'd just done a big Oasis album or something, and they couldn't afford him for the second half of it. So they used this guy called Tony Dugan, who had a place called Castle of Doom up in Glasgow, and that's where Mogwai used to run that studio. Bell and Sebastian was involved in that lot. So this guy had some credentials, this Tony Dugan. So we went in with him and we did the full album, and actually it was good. It was good. In comparison, we did the second album in 2 months. Stayed in Glasgow in the West End. We've got lots of good friends up there. So as you can imagine, on the evening, it was quite good fun. But in the daytime, it was no beer. It was like a 9 to 5 situation, a bit like when we worked with Stephen Street, which was very different to when we worked with Owen Morris from the first album. And plus, when I was drinking probably a bit too much then. And so I was like struggling all day, thinking, can we get through the day and have a drink? And later, it turns out Marv was drinking all the way through. It just kept it quiet. And it was good, and it was a different way of doing an album. I mean, there was a couple of them that were fully like recorded over live tracks with a lot of overdubs, but then we recorded lots of different ways. Lots more, I think, more thought gone into the layering of the guitar, so it wasn't just overdub after overdub or just for the sake of it. We was a bit more conscientious of how we did it, and Tony really helped with that. And like back harmonies, 3-part harmonies, me and Tony Dugan trying to work them out. which is quite interesting because you don't see a harmony on anything on the first album. So yeah, it was good. And I'm quite happy with it. I think, I mean, I wrote quite a lot of the songs off the first album, nearly all of them, with a couple of like co-writes with Tom. But the second album, I wrote 5, made it onto the album. The other 5 were written by Tom and Josh separately altogether. So this is this slightly different sound as well. You can hear that.
Yeah, I was going to say, what point did that happen? Because it felt like you said, there's demos coming out that sounded like of the same vein to the first album that I think were written by you. And then at some point, because there was a big gap, at some point, Tom and Josh started adding to it. Like, was that like a conscious decision, or did it just happen over time?
I think it was to do with Josh developing as a musician and wanting to write more. And then obviously writing on his own or writing with Tom in the same way Tom wrote with me. And then when I started hearing different stuff, I think it pushed me, because the first batch of demos you got for the second album were very much like the first album, what I was writing, or similar. And then I started to write differently a little bit as well. I started to write with Frosty. Frost, who was in like the whole band, he still is in the whole band No Nothings. He was in the band briefly. So that sort of changed it. Sticky Fingers, for example, has got a co-writing credit with Frosty and me. Well, it just says the Paddingtons and Chris Frost, because we never identified who wrote anything in the Pads other than when we had us co-writers, outside of the band. So I think it's for more of an eclectic album, different sounds on there. When I listened to some of the one set of lyrics, I think, fucking hell, what was I writing there? That's enough. And it's still one of our fan favourite songs when we played gigs this year. If you don't play Stand Down, you get shouted at.
Ah, yeah, it's a good song.
This is the chorus. Oh my God, what am I doing? I aren't going to repeat it, but I don't want you to share them either. People can find them for themselves. Grant would say dog shit sandwich.
It's a good video, that as well, to be fair.
Yeah, that's like a bit of a documents the last 4 years of the band.
Yeah,
so all that first comes first, but it's all first come first touring footage, basically. Yeah. Victoria Park, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I might have been at that one. And I think we've gone over the gap. We have gone over it a little bit, I think, before. But what is the main reason why there was such a long gap? And is that something you changed looking back?
You mean between the albums?
Yeah.
That's because we got dropped.
Right, okay, yeah.
And I think we got dropped because the album did actually all right and the singles did all right. Probably could have done better. The gigs were still really full. Do you know what I mean? We're still playing like, I remember that was not long before we got dropped, we'd sold out Coco, Camden Palais or whatever it's called now. We sold that out. And then we did some big shows up in Edinburgh where there's like 1,200 people. We're still doing it. So there was still a market there for us. But what allegedly had happened is what allegedly, Grant would probably remember more actually than me. Grant's pretty good, but was that we got the MD of Mercury or whatever left, got sacked, whatever. So there's a new guy in. We was told we would be all right, and then we weren't, because anybody who worked on Team Paddington, all like the book, all them, they all got sacked, I guess. And then in the background, there's other things going on. New styles of music coming from the same sort of ilk. I don't know, the new rave thing was going on and a lot. And I think we just fell out of favour a little bit with the industry. So I think that lost us a year, because we was recorded some stuff with the Charlies at the Charlies studio, which again we was sort of happy with. But then we had a bit of an arm wrestle with the record label, and eventually got paid some cash off them, plus this deal we got with somebody else that made us have enough money to actually go in and do it properly. So I think we actually recorded it and got it done by some point in 2007, and then we released it in 2008. Whereas if it had been seamless, we'd have probably released it in 2007.
Yeah.
It would have been a bit better for continuity, but c'est la vie.
Yeah. And I was watching an interview with you and Josh around that time that did a Hull Daily Mail, or for the Hull Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And, Josh seems very pragmatic in it. He's like, oh, realistically, we know where we've released one album, and it's like, then was there a bit of a shift in dynamics in the band at some point?
That was Josh subconsciously trying to kick us lot up our ass, because unofficially he became sort of our manager, even though we had managers. And we, in hindsight, it's probably a good thing, but we fucking resented it as well. Well, some of us did. So that was him saying what he said to us in prep talks at rehearsals, but just on a camera for a local rag. I'm like, all right, you because he's probably half right, but then there was still a bit of a momentum. I've just described it. We had only released an album. And I don't mean anything. You need more than that. You need more of it. And we eventually got a bit more of a back catalogue for us, and we did that. It took us until we sort of split up. But we were still selling out decent venues, and we're getting decent bits of press. So, yeah, I remember that interview.
Yeah, it's interesting watching it. Yeah.
Grant's on the other interview, and Marv are on about, yeah, fuck it, we just want to do gigs and get beer thrown at us. So that was their optimism. So I was paired with Mr. Cynicism, but in hindsight, it's probably, well, he's right.
Yeah. And like, was getting your own, the rehearsal space, like how did that improve things, like in terms of songwriting, or how did it change things?
Yeah, we had a den. The place still exists now, actually. It gets used all the time. It's back of Adelphi, which was always really handy in Hull.
Yeah.
But I was there every day for a while. And we had a mate of ours called Paddy Tobin, who was in local bands, who was always setting up studios. And we let him put his recording studio in our studio for now, as long as he just record demos for us whenever we wanted them. And that was for me every day. I was like, come on, we're in. And then and then Tom and Josh would go in, or Josh would go in, and then we'd rehearse maybe for a couple of days without recording. So you got that rehearsing ready for gigs, or rehearsing to get the stuff you just wrote up to scratch for going into the proper studio. Plus you got time to be on your own with somebody like Paddy, who's really creative, to bounce ideas off. So that probably led to the variety of stuff that we had to choose from, and probably the slight differentiation between the songs we have on that second album. I mean, some people might listen to it and say it was all sounds the same. Fair enough, whatever, subjective, innit? But I mean, as for me, who was involved in it right in the middle of it, there's different stuff on there.
No, it's definitely a different sound to that second album, yeah. But I think, how do you reflect on it? Like, because of the gap, I guess things had to change, even like the image, like the logos of the band.
Yeah.
And kind of the image of like just the Paddington's changed and everything. Do you think it needed a change at that point?
I don't know. We did change the logos, and our artwork. Sorry, there's kind of Diet Coke falling off the table. Yeah, I mean, that was Josh's bag rebranding. It's fine. Right, yeah. I quite like it. I was at our Grant's on Christmas Day on the evening, having some Christmas dinner and that. And he's got in the corner. You have to get him to send you a picture of it, actually. It's quite cool. All his bass drum skins up on the wall from like first album logo. I think he's even got pre-first album logo, first album logo for the second album, logo for Ladyboy Tapes. And I think he's even got a copy of it. Have you seen his drum kit with Brian Blessed on it?
All right, yeah.
He's got them all there, and you can see, I guess, the vibe. I guess Josh and Tom and other people were feeding into it from from a logo branding, which is obviously replicated on artwork and posters and gig tour adverts and stuff. I guess we probably didn't dress as trampy. That was because we were getting clothes off JD, and that, so we were getting free Fred Perry's and that for free.
Quality, yeah. And then just kind of skipping ahead to the Ladyboy Tapes, at that point, does it feel like one last throw of the dice, or not really?
Probably. I think some people, again, we did work, because that transitions Marv leaving, which we've covered in other podcasts, and Stewie joining properly, and we did do a load of demos before that. There was a whole load of demos which would have become the Paddington's third album that still exists.
All right, cool.
And that's the one my mate Rory was who has to play music with in Hull, still do. He loves that, because he was like, well, that's fine. He was finally going where he wanted to be. Basically ripping off Sebador on Pavement, basically. Just as all the other bands were doing that, like Yuck and all that lot. So that's a very similar process, but we just wanted to put the EP out because we wanted to frame it around the Adam Green song, what he wrote with Tom and Josh, the Ladyboy from Hull song. So that was always going to be an EP, and the plan was always to do another album. We had probably enough money in the can to do it as well, but then it kind of fizzled out then. And we did a couple of really nice tours to support that EP. We did a sold-out tour of Northern Italy, did some Germany stuff. There was still an appetite for it, but I think we just fizzled out. We just burnt out as people, I think, because we were relentless, always out and gigging and working, and it just sort of fizzled. And then we get back together every 3 years to do some gigs, and it's a good laugh.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Because I guess you're up against, the money draining out of the industry with the internet and everything at the same time as well.
Yeah, we was up against it, and I think I'll probably subconsciously our big hope was to write a really good album that could get the press the first album got. I mean, the second album got a bit of press, just not as much, but it got all the magazines covered it. But we needed some more than that. We need to break into a new generation of younger people as well. And I don't know, maybe what we were trying to flog was the wrong thing. But to be fair, I love all them people. I love the Ladyboy tapes. I have all great memories of that time. Them demos we did around that time, some really good tunes on there. Stuff that I still mess around with now and play live acoustically on my own. There's songs there I play, proud of them and stuff. So again, no regrets. C'est la vie.
Yeah, songs like you wrote Broken Man, didn't you? I mean, I love that song. I was always gutted that kind of disappeared, but
yeah,
I've got songs like that again.
Yeah, I forgot about that one because we played that quite a bit. But then again, I think as Tom and Josh started writing, them songs got pushed a bit because that was quite like a first album track. It was. It's also got a fucking rip-off of a Coldplay song, which I never shout about. Got a melody of that song, Fix You by Coldplay, not deliberate.
All right.
And I'm like, then I listen to it if I listen to it now, I go, oh yeah, Coldplay.
It's funny because we used to rehearse in your space, and you'd have this like whiteboard, I think it was, where you'd have the chords. Yeah. So like I used to like nick them, like see Broken Man play it, and it is actually it is a chord progression I've seen a few times. I think France Libertines is the same chord progression.
Yeah, it's very similar to First Comes First as well.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it's very similar. That it's that minor to that major change, and then the chorus is just like a big old D A thing. There was Rat Race as well from that period, which is quite good. There's about 18 versions of the song.
I remember that being on that Sesh CD. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was the real shit version. But there's some other ones that were quite interesting. I think we revisited it. Like there's a song that's on the Ladyboy tapes. I want to say called "Give It Up."
Yeah.
That was like a Stewie revamped version of a song that was wrote in 2005. I think so. It got released 10 years later. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've got a memory of us playing Broken Man at Pete Doherty's house once.
Really? You can remember being at that party?
I know. I'm like, I wouldn't want to see the reality of what was going on there, really. But
that was the most. I've been to some parties, like Hutt Street parties in Hull, but that was the most mental party I've ever been to. It was like a not quite a stately home, but not far off a stately home that he was renting from somebody. About 500 people in there. The pads played. I remember me and Uncle Dave was playing gladiators, pugiling with these sticks in this stable on top of these bales of air. People were coming and going. Yeah, that was a wild party. It seemed to go on for a couple of days. That.
Yeah, we turned up quite late, and then people were like, "Oh, so was Pete Doherty actually there?" I was like, "Well, kind of, but the Paddingtons might have given him loads of Valium at some point."
Yeah, we did. No, we give him them at the beginning we got there really early, and he was rattling around the house, and he was in good spirits. And we just went. Do you know what? He mentions it in his book as well.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
My mate bought me the book. Now, my mate bought the book twice by accident. Right. And he gave me the book, and I thought, I'm going to read this. And then I started playing this game with myself. I wonder how many times we get mentioned in this book. So I was reading it for that reason, which is a bit. Well, anyway, I thought, well, I've started now. And there's some quite nice stuff in it, but there's a few times we get mentioned. There's quite a few times anyway. But that's where we go. We had a bottle of rum. And then an empty bottle of rum, we put a note in it, basically saying, "Thank you very much, happy birthday. I mean, you've done all sorts for us, this, that, and the other." Can't remember who wrote it. And then 20 of these Valium, yellow valleys in the bottom. And it was basically like, you might need them after the party. Do you know what I mean? Get your head, whatever. He just got them in one hand and went, about 8 of them and just went bang. And we was like, oh. Okay. So he was walking around like that all day while we was tidying his house up before people came. It was a good day.
Yeah, it was good. It was like some mad museum or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember Sean Khan walking with mate of mine, Sean, and like really intrigued. He was a lot older than us, at my dad's age anyway. And back then he'd have been in his he'd probably been 50. And he's walking around the house with a vintage, when I say vintage, a really old top hat and a walking stick with a piece of amber, like from Jurassic Park, do you know, amber, yeah. And then it had a narwhal's, I think it was a whale of some sort. I remember someone telling me a narwhal's spine. And it was like, this was like just stuff like that everywhere. Everywhere you look, there was something to put on, or like a trinket or some weird instrument. It's quite cool just for that itself.
Yeah, it was mad.
Yeah.
All right, then Neil, go back. There's a question that kind of segues quite well into this stuff. Robin Jones, 1982 on Instagram says, who was the best band to tour with for fun and socially?
Probably the Cribs. And we didn't tour as such with the Cribs, but we did a lot of gigs with the Cribs. Because I was about to say Baby Shambles there, but actually Baby Shambles sometimes was real fun, but then sometimes it was quite gnarly. Whereas the Cribs, although we all had a good drink and had a bit of fun and stuff, there was something a little bit more grounded in our relationship with as the Paddingtons and the Cribs. I'm not saying the Pete thing wasn't, or the Mick from Baby Shambles and Drew and Adam, because they're really good friends and we're still keeping touch with them. But there was a backdrop of it being a bit mental. So it was fun, but then it wasn't. It was like people not turn up or whatever. Whereas the Cribs, and we met the Cribs really early on doing gigs in Hull, and used to do their own gigs without the bookers knowing and stuff. And there was something, I don't know, maybe it's because we was Northern as well, similar age-ish. There's something grounded in that one, which was more, it made it feel a bit more fun and a bit more natural and a bit less looking over your shoulder in case something went wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so probably the Cribs, real good fun, had a good laugh. Don't get me wrong, some of them gigs was a bit gnarly as well, but there was less of that. Everything that was foreign docky around.
Yeah. Did they play some house? I remember someone saying in Hull that the Cribs played in a house once or something.
Oh yeah, they played at down to Grey Street. We did a gig. There was half the Paddingtons and half the Morphines played. The Cribs turned up and played. Yeah, that was really early doors, 2003 or something.
Quality. And then Fergie from Glasgow.
Is that Fergie?
I think so, yeah.
It will be. I'd like to think it is. I hope it is. Hey, Fergie.
It says, what's your favourite memory of playing in Glasgow or being in Glasgow?
Oh, there's too many. It's probably too many. I can't say. Talked to Fergie back in the day. I think the best ever gig we did in Glasgow, which is probably the best memory because it was absolutely random. I think it's called QMU, Queen Mary University, QMU. I think that's what it's called. That was brilliant. That was one of the best gigs we ever did. That was like 900 tickets, 1,000 tickets. Everyone just going mental, coming to watch us. That was fantastic. And then things with our Scottish friends and fans. You played Glasgow, and it weren't just people from Glasgow. Glasgow and Edinburgh, like a bit of a centre for people to come from all over Glasgow, all over Scotland, within reason. Maybe driving from Aberdeen's a bit of a trek, or Inverness, because we had friends up there as well. But there was like the lads and lasses from Fife and all that lot. So the gig would be ace, and the party would be great after it, and then you'd get taken, whisked away to other places and other parties. We played Glasgow recently, actually, part of a little mini tour, and it was actually no different from what it was in 2005. Well, it was slightly different actually, because the people who was there at the front in 2005 crying aggressively and almost looking like they're going to punch you, but they actually love you. They were doing it now, but they're now 40, and then there was crying and telling you about the kids and the families. So there was a bit of that. And because of Whitey, who's joined the band to play with us, he was like, "What are they going to punch me, or are they going to cuddle me?" I said, "I don't know. Do both."
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, what's he brought to the band's a bit of youth, obviously.
Bit of youth, makes us behave.
Oh, really?
New boy in town. But we've actually worked on a load of tracks and we've sat on them. So we wrote them with Whitey. Whitey wrote a couple of songs with me. Whitey wrote a couple of songs with Tom, and we've demoed them live, and then we've recorded them in a studio in Hull, and we'd like to one day release them, but timing's got to be right, and people's it's got to be the band's priority as individuals as well as a band. So you might not see it ever, or you might see it in a couple of years' time. But what he contributed to them was really exciting. It was nice to write with somebody else, but for the Paddingtons, which I've never done. So that was quite cool, and it came quite naturally. And he's a great guitar player. He's an absolute and amazing guitar player. And he was playing with Cannibal Hannibal last week, and he absolutely smashed it. I urge people to check out that band live. I mean, sorry, on Spotify or whatnot, or on app, or wherever you stream your music, because you're probably not going to see them live ever again. But they're a special band. Some great videos out there of them as well.
Yeah, yes. And then I was enjoying yours and Grant's interview with Shadu.
Oh yeah.
Just one more about Doherty, just because, like, just give a bit of an insight into, like, you know, what people see, what people don't see. Like you said, he was asking about like your kids and stuff when he saw him in Holland, stuff like that.
Yeah,
maybe people won't expect that of him.
People probably don't expect that of him, but he's always done that to me, because my daughter was born right in the middle of it, and he's a dad as well, and he used to say that all the time, even when he was out of it. Really, he'd always ask you when. Doherty was obviously he's had troubles with drugs, hasn't he? Obviously, we all know that. But it didn't. I mean, sometimes people can be that out of it, they can't communicate anyway, and I guess that's like anybody, Doherty, me, or whoever. You've partied too much, but for the most part, he was always asking us about Hull. Always asking us history. I'm into history. He was always talking to me about history. As soon as my daughter was born, he was always asking about how Berry was. Can she read yet? Do you know, stuff like that. And then he was just, as soon as I got there, he was like, I was Berry. Straight away, I remembered the name and said, I've heard you've got a new little boy. And I was chatting away. And I mean, and it's quite knocking around with him at that gig. It was really, and it was great. He played his solo album. I can't remember who the guy he played with. It was really interesting to see him play other stuff. There was still a slight Doherty circus going on, because in the sound check and all, there was a dog running around the place, and it was still a bit mental. Do you know what I mean? And but that hospitality he gave us, and the way he treated us, and the way he asked about our families and our backgrounds, that still happened straight away upstairs. It was really nice, and he was really sober. Which, by the way, I mean, I'm not saying we was having a drink and stuff, but it was really, really sober, which is nice to see, because obviously, carry on the way he was carrying on, you know what happens, don't you? So it's really nice to see that. And again, when we did the Libertines gig this year it was ace. My daughter got to meet him, because my daughter's really into noughties indie. She's really into it. Surprise, surprise. So she came down with Kerry and Mum, and I was watching her on when the Pads were playing, and she was at the front. She was going mental. You could see her. She was smiling her head off. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't see her. And I was like, oh, I wonder where she is. And I'm like, focus on the gig. Because I'm like, where's my daughter? And then I looked to the viewing station there. And we're playing 52 a pound. And Doherty's basically got picked up like this in the air. Singing with her. So I thought, oh, this is brilliant. She's having a real good time. Carl Barat did say to me later on, is this your new girlfriend? I said, it's my daughter. It was so embarrassing.
What genuine mistake?
He went, oh, no, sorry, and walked off. And Berry was like, oh my God, what's he on about?
Okay, now. Yeah, where does that rank then, that gig, in terms of all the Paddington's gigs?
Oh, up there with any. It was unbelievable. Yeah. It was really good. We played really tight, rehearsed right for it, kept a lid on the booze a little bit. There was about 6,000 people when we went on. By the end of it, it was absolutely rammed. And what was nice was like, there was a lot of old friends there we hadn't seen for a long time. And when I took Berry for a walk through the crowd, I went, come on, I'll show you see if anybody recognises the band. Did it on purpose. And it was ace because I was saying, well, it was recognised. It was people I hadn't seen for years, you know, old friends and stuff. And that was nice. The after party was good. Yeah, it was brilliant. Well up there. Tom was brilliant. Performed. Whitey got to play the biggest gig he'd easily ever done, I'm sure. So yeah, it was up there. It was really good. Really good stuff.
Yeah, so we'll move on to your favourite album of the noughties then. Like, well, I don't know where to start with it really, but yeah.
Can you guess what my favourite album of the noughties is?
I mean, I could obviously go for Is This It, but I don't know.
Well, it's my favourite. It's probably not the best, but it's my favourite.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I've chose it for a number of reasons. I mean, there's a load, when I thought about it, there's a load that could be my favourite. Like the first three Cribs albums. Probably the second Cribs album could be easily my favourite. First two Interpol albums. And then there's when you go into what's the best album. I mean, that's so much. And I think like First Impressions of Earth by The Strokes could probably be a better album, but is it my favourite? Suburbs by Arcade Fire is a brilliant album. Second and third Horrors album, even though I think the third album's probably 2011. They're really good albums. But for me, it's Is This It? Because I think it's the one that, not just me personally, but that flipped a lot of things musically in this country for certainly people who are interested in what you'd describe as indie, alternative guitar music, less so rock. And on a personal level, it just changed the way I thought about music. I mean, and also it's a fucking great album. It's like every song. Do you know when you get? And some people say the art of the album's dead in. Musicians do actively go out to make albums. I think it's how it's consumed. But so bands do try and put an album together how they think an album should be, and that's a perfectly put together album. The running order, everything, and it's got my favourite Strokes album on it as well. Song. Hard to explain. It's my favourite Strokes song. But that's my favourite album.
Ah, excellent. And did you get to see him much around when they played in England?
No, I didn't. I saw him in Hull.
Yeah.
I think I've seen him about twice. Because I had no money when they was playing actively, and then when we were playing, we were playing. Do you know what I mean? So I got to meet him at the NME Awards. That was quite cool. 2005.
Oh, really?
6, something like that. I was like, oh, nice to meet you. I love your band. And I was thinking, that's all anybody says with long hair in a band. But I had to say it. But yeah, I think Josh and Tom have had a lot more dealings with them.
I think Tom said he met him at that mad hotel where all the bands stayed in London.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple. Oh, the Columbia Hotel.
Yeah, it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, that was like, I was about to say knocking shop. That's a bit out of order. But it wasn't far off. It wasn't far off. There was bands and people and dealers and ladies in the night. It was just crazy. In and out all night.
Yeah, Tom said we might be able to get the Boca Wonder on, which would be good.
That would be good.
I'll have to see.
Yeah. Are you going to try and get tickets to see Mouldy Peaches?
Is it Brixton they're playing or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe,
I want to go see him. Yeah. On the back of that, I think they got back together on the back of that film, which I still haven't seen yet. Have you seen it?
No, it's not. It's only out in America, isn't it? Or if you got Dodgy Fire, you can get it apparently.
So is it not going to get general release over here?
Yeah, I think it's February.
Oh, is it? Right, I'll
yeah.
wait. I'm sure, yeah, cool. What's it called? Meet Me in the Bathroom.
Yeah, have you not read the book?
I've got it. It's one of them you flick through in the back of the van.
Yeah. I think someone's doing trying to do a British version as well, which would be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm sure he might have been interviewed already for it. I don't know.
I believe it's somebody I know in it. Anyway, I think I'll do that.
And then Marv asked an interesting question. He said, "Is your favourite song from that time on your favourite album?"
No. What's my favourite song from that? Oh, do you know what?
It's a ridiculous question, really. But
well, it is. But in my favourites, I mean, there's so many better songs on the noughties than on that album. But that's just a perfect album for me, and it's personally one of my favourite albums. Because my favourite Strokes song, actually, when I think about it, it's a close tie between Hard to Explain and Eyes of the World.
Yeah.
And Eyes of the World's absolutely brilliant. I think it's a brilliant. What's the best song of that? I don't know. I don't know.
I know what you mean. That's a good example of like you were saying before, like the comparison between. It's like it is the perfectly constructed song "Eyes of the World," isn't it?
No, it's cool.
But it's just got maybe a different energy to the first album, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just some of the melodies on it, and yeah, I can't even describe it. But when I'm pissed at a party, I would just listen to this bit, and someone would go, "Yeah, Lloyd, you've done this with us every single time it's on. We like it." I'm like, "No, but listen to this bit."
Yeah, so you can't really pick a favorite song, do you think?
The Noise, nah, I don't think I can.
No, it's pretty much.
I mean, if you ask me what my favorite song is of all time, it's a Neil Young song. Tell Me Why. The best album of all time is Neil Young. There you go. It's done. 70s, I can tell you what it is. Noughties, don't know, just loads. I don't know.
Yeah, fair play. What's your favorite Paddington song out of interest?
Heart Song, which Tom Atkin wrote.
Yeah, I remember you saying that actually.
That's my favorite.
Interesting.
Favorite song.
The demos of that were rare.
Yeah, the album version is pretty neat.
Yeah.
One I didn't like and now I like more is You and I, which I wrote, and at the time I was and then Atkin got us to play it again, and we was like, oh, I don't mind that song, and we just give it a bit more. Give it a bit more of a Pixies edge and give it a bit more. Do you know what I mean? It was, all right, and he sings really well on that one.
Yeah, remember that was one that came out of the demos at the Charlton studio. I really like that version.
There's a few versions of it, and then the album version. The album versions are actually always better than whatever we did. Some people disagree, but I think that they are. The second album versions are better than all previous demos. They are better producer, better studio, more time to think about it. Better. Yeah,
fair. Yeah, how would you compare? It's obviously a lot more live, the first album.
Yeah.
Do you think it was just like quite interesting to do it in a different way?
Yeah, it was. It was because we actually literally played every single song live and then overdubbed on it on this first album. Whereas the second album, some of it wasn't done that way at all. There was like, maybe Grant was recorded, whereas we was in a different booths and we was playing, but it weren't recorded, and then we'd layer it on, which we'd never done that before. So I'm just opening this beer with it.
No worries.
So I do with this.
The Paddingtons were always good at opening beers, I remember.
Yeah, I just did it with I opened a beer with a can of Diet Coke.
I remember the first person I saw do it with a light, it was Grant, I think.
Oh yeah, it's like a dunk. Anyway.
What was I going to say? Was it Paddy Tobin who produced the Ladyboys EP? How did that work?
But he did some work on it. No, Anthony Rosamondo pulled it all together.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. But Paddy Tobin did contribute to it. So some of it was recorded in Hull. Like we did a lot of vocals at his studio, and then was sent to him to mix. So the vocals for Ladyboy in Hull, the song with all the backing vocals and all sorts, was done in Hull. But Adam did his vocals in London, and then there was in LA actually, and then there was sent to Anthony, who pulled it all together.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he'd be good to get on actually.
Oh, he's great, Anthony.
Yeah, it'd be real good. He's been winning Grammys and all sorts, hasn't he?
Did you know he wrote like loads of the songs for that Star Is Born film?
Yeah, I know he'd won like, is it Grammys he was winning or something?
Yeah. Isn't it?
That's wild, yeah. And then just thought of one question that's quite good to finish off on. Like, if you could watch one band again, like in the pomp from the noughties, who would it be?
Who don't exist now, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, do you know what? There's loads, but do you know what? The first one, because they were fucking brilliant. The name checked in your pod would be the Rakes, because they were absolutely fantastic to watch live. And also good. They were a good set of lads to have a drink with as well. Some may say that they were, or they didn't. You wouldn't think that they were, but they could sup. Especially Alan. Alan could sup.
Yeah, I think they're the one band I'd love to see reform. I don't know if that's because I know there's no chance because Alan's not into it, but It would be great.
I mean, I don't even know. I listened to a bit of Lasser. Lasser did a podcast with you, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I listened to a bit of it, and then just do sometimes you get busy, do you? But and he was a funny guy, Lasser as well. There was just wisecracking all the time and stuff. Took the music seriously, like, do you know what I mean? But there was a really good live performer. Sorry, there was a shut up, Lloyd. Do it.
Yeah. All right, Ace, mate, that's spot on that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll go on Patreon first, and I'll get it out on the other channels at some point. But yeah, spot on, mate.
Nice one. Well, thanks for asking me. Covered a bit of ground there, and I'll.
Yeah, it's great.
Have a great new year, and hopefully see you on the other side soon. Get you to Hull for a beer once. We never see you in the flesh.
I know, mate. Yeah, definitely will do it.
Yeah.
In the new year.
You look after yourself, bro.
And you, mate. Cheers for that.
Ta-da.